Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Fireside Chat at Djuma. It is really apologetic that we are so late. We had a bit of a technical problem. But I just wanted to say welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, everyone.
So Chris and I have known each other for a very, very long time. We've got a lot of stories to tell you. We both really started our journey at Djuma, I guess. It was the first place that you ever guided from. Is that right, Chris?
Great. It's where I cut my teeth, and it's where I'd actually decided to make that choice of guiding. So to cut a long story short, I went up and I was given a 6-week opportunity by Pippa and Yuri to come and just have an experience in a bush lodge and see if I liked it and if I wanted to make a career out of it. And in those days, I think I got board, lodging, and 500 rands worth of drinks per month was my payment. And I was expecting to go out on safari and have an amazing time every day, but it wasn't always that way. We had to do a lot of manual labor, but I got to spend time with the trackers out in the bush. And the first day, one of the perks, if there was enough people on game drive, if there were enough spaces on that game drive, I could go on a game drive, and I saw the guides working, and I just thought, yes, this is what I want to do. And so I went for 6 weeks, and we spent 8.5 years there.
I know the feeling, eh? So, well, I just want to say that what we're going to do is we're going to chat about some of the animals and the stories that we both have of this amazing place. But the whole real reason for this is to reintroduce some of you. Some of you may remember Chris, but to reintroduce you to him, because Chris will be conducting 2 of the expeditions to Djuma later this year. Chris is doing the 2 in September. And Nick de Jong, who some of you would have seen on the previous Fireside Chat on Sunday, he is doing the 2 in October. And then Valia Steyn, who we're doing a Fireside Chat with tomorrow, he is doing 2 in November. And you can go and see this at the djuma.com website /expeditions. And you can see the whole story, what it involves, what's included, and basically it's all your accommodation, all your food, non-alcoholic drinks, although you can order your alcoholic drinks separately. Your flights down from Johannesburg down to Hoedspruit, transfers in to have Chris, Villiers, or Nick with you. Aubrey will also be guiding on all the safaris, and what we'll come to Orbs in a moment, and what Orbs has forgotten about Djuma isn't worth worrying about, and basically it's 5 nights, 6 days, in on a Monday, out on a Saturday. We've tried to make it really well priced, so that it's affordable. Obviously, unfortunately, for a lot of South Africans, it isn't. It's just unfortunately a very weak currency. But we have tried as hard as we can. There are 3 rooms. There is Safari, who we'll talk about. There's Karula, who we'll talk about, and Hosana. All priced slightly differently depending on the size, but all very similar and all very comfortable and all en suite. We will open the bookings on the 3rd of May at a time. There's a countdown on the expeditions page, so you can see exactly when. And then we're just going to work on a straight first come, first serve basis. So it is really important that you pick your preferred date and room, and then a second backup one, so that we can do our best to get everybody placed where they want to be and be just super fair about it. There won't be any more this year. There may not be any more next year. Yuri and Pippa haven't decided. They are, as you all know, trying to and have dramatically reduced the impact and the presence. Sadly, unfortunately, Wild Earth, after many years, I've got to do the math, 18 years. has been on Djuma, but it was a really big footprint. I think what Yuri was saying to me, it got to like 15 people, 10 to 15 people at a time that were permanently living, and that's a huge impact to have that many people permanently living just from one thing. There are other lodges, so all the lodges, not all, many of the lodges around continue to traverse on Djuma, but you know, there's nobody that stays anymore on the property. So they've really managed to drastically reduce the number of people on the property. This is what makes these expeditions so special. Okay, with that out of the way, one other bit of housekeeping here as well is that those of you that are big fans of the Djuma Cam, like me, and well, probably many of you watching, we've been having some real technical issues. We have a problem, and let me just briefly explain it. Sorry, Chris, but I think it's important that everyone knows what's going on here.
Absolutely. So I want to know as well.
So what happened was Yuri asked me to help set up the Djuma Cam again, and really helped by Will Kutsia and his brother, who came down and did all the technical setup, and then we built the network, and we're running over a wireless network that goes from Djuma, from the tower at Yuri's house, up to Maripskorp, which is 80 kilometers away. And then at Maripskorp, there are many, many, many masts and lots of other wireless networks that really connect the whole of the Lowveld. You know, almost the whole of the Lowveld runs through that one section of the mountain. And the thing is, everybody has to be in the same frequency band. And it's a narrow, publicly available frequency band where the problem is there's so much interference, and everybody's interfering with everybody else. There is no real coordination. There can't be, and everyone has an equal right to the frequency. So it's just a tangled mess, frankly. And what we're discovering is that this is causing almost, well, actually for the last few days, daily, and in fact today, shame. I mean, the Zoomy team had to go through this whole process that we've got of restarting the camera up after this each time, 7 times today, which is just crazy. Point being, it's kind of beyond our control, but that's not to say that we're doing nothing about it. Right now, I'm helping Yuri looking at a permanent solution that will get us around this problem, and we're going to action it as quickly as possible. So bear with us. Apologies. Our target here is to get to a point where it is absolutely rock solid and reliable, and you can count on it. Okay, so apologies for all of that. And then I guess to jump in and to say that I remember now. I don't know about the dates here, but I know that it was before. I know that it was before. It was before Wild Earth, but it was after African that we did a series for SABC called Djuma Diaries, and you were the guide on that.
A much younger guy there, but it was hugely fun, man. We what I think we was it 11 or 14 weeks on 50/50. It ran every week, and yeah, it's kind of showcased everything that Djuma had to offer. And yeah, I remember having to be out there in the bush. I'd go on my game drives, get back from game drives, and then Paul was there, he was. He'd say, right, Chris, let's go out, and we'd have to video and spend all video. I had no time off. I didn't get a midday sleep for about a month.
I remember, of course, we were doing it between your game, because you were doing safaris in the morning and the evening, and then you were doing Djuma Diaries in the middle of the day.
Absolutely, and we were seeing amazing things during the morning game drive. We'd go back, and then the lions would be asleep, and so it was a good thing that Safari Live came around, because you could do it live. And I distinctly remember sitting in what's now Cheetah Plains camp, but it looked nothing like Cheetah Plains camp.
Unrecognizable.
Next to the curio shop at the old Djuma Bush Lodge, which is one of my favorite places I've ever spent time with or at. And you talking about something called fiber optic, and as usual, I thought that Graham Wallington, yes, Graham's got something else on the go. No ways. We were still at that time, I think, doing dial-up internet connections to put in our food orders from the Bumba Fruit and Veg in Hoedspruit. And you were talking about fiber optics. And the next thing, it came, the next thing, the live Safari Live came about. No, and it was mental, for me, because prior to that, and you may well remember this as well, is on our game drives, certainly with Africa, I think it was Africa. Anyway, it was, so when Rexton used to sit with that box.
Yeah, that was Africa. That was the virtual game drive. That was in 1999 that we built that system, man. Crazy.
And it was incredible because we'd sit there and we'd go on a game drive and we'd be looking at a leopard, and the leopard would just get up and start grooming itself or start to call, or the lion would start to roar, and we'd be listening, and then we'd hear this as every 30 seconds one frame would get sent back to Vuyatela, back to Djuma, and then get sent out to the world every 30 seconds. Yeah.
With no audio. So just for those of you, I mean, I don't know how many people would remember this, but it was actually kind of crazy, a system that it was a gray Pelican case, and my cousin Alex had put it all together, and basically what it had in there was a VHF radio, and what we would do is we would convert. The camera operator had a video camera, but we didn't have video. So what would happen is every 30 seconds, without the cameraman knowing exactly when, it would grab a single frame, and then it would use a thing called slow scan TV, which is a technology that is so ancient. I mean, the Flintstones used it, and it would convert that image into audio. I'm not joking. It would go line by line like a fax machine and convert the image into audio, and it would modulate the sound for the different colors and intensity of each pixel. And then it would transmit that over a VHF radio for 30 seconds. That's how long it took to transmit as an audio signal. And then on the receive end, it would decode that audio signal back into and build up line by line. Like literally we were faxing images.
And one last thing, it used to interfere with our radio signal as well. So what would happen was I'd get back from game drive and the other guides would say, "Oh, we saw this and this and this on game drive," and I had no idea. So it made me a better tracker because we had to find our own game.
Speaking of tracker, so you said to me that where you're working now, the tracker that you work with is Abel's brother. Is that right?
Correct. So Abel Mkansi, I think, along with Aubrey and Goben, are the longest serving staff members of Djuma, and I wouldn't be where I am today without the trackers that I met, like Abel, like Orbs, like Patrick, like Morris, sadly, who's both of them no longer with us, but and all the others, and old William as well. And so a couple of years ago, at our camps that we've got, I needed a tracker, and I reached out to Abel, and I said, "Abes, I need somebody. Who can you suggest?" And he said, "My brother Dick." And Dick came and joined us 2 years ago, and the Mkansi's gene is very strong, let me say that. And so we have a good laugh, we enjoy the bush together, passionate, and just that intuitiveness that people that grow up on the western edge of Kruger, and especially in that western edge of the Sabi Sands, just, there's things there that can't be taught in books. And so I'm indebted to all of those guys. And one of the reasons that I agreed was stoked to come on these trips was the chance to work with Abel again after Orbs again. When the last time I worked with Orbs was as a tracker when I was working at Vuyatela, probably 2002, 2003, and I've obviously kept up with them, and I've seen them on various visits when we've come back to visit the Mormons at Djuma. and also at Tumbeta, which we've stayed at a few times, which is stunning, by the way, guys. Yeah, can't wait to reconnect with Orbs and work with them. And no one knows that piece of land better than Aubrey. It's
No,
amazing.
he really does.
No one.
And what's going to be important is that Aubrey's also going to be able to keep you updated on where the cat dynasties are at and the hyenas. But I mean, we were talking earlier about some of the amazing leopards that are, and just hearing the names. You know, I mean, you mentioned the Shavati male, and we both laughed because he was not an attractive cat. He really wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He was he had this. He was a beautiful leopard that was born down in, at the time, if I saw pictures of him when he was a cub. But he moved up from Londolozi, and he came up, and he was this pug-faced leopard with a massive scar, and that's the Tsonga or Shangaan word for scar is Shivati, and he had this scar across his nose, but he came up and he ruled there for probably like 4 to 5 years, if my memory serves me correctly, and yeah, he was an absolute. So Graham and I were talking about, you know, all the leopards that are there now, and because I don't spend a lot of time there currently, I may not know them, but I was pretty. Yeah, we used to enjoy spending time with their grandmothers, or in one case, the great grandmother as well.
Safari, exactly, Safari. So yeah. And what you said, something that really, you know, resonated and I'd forgotten, is that back in those days, there were very few habituated females. So almost all the viewing was of the territorial males, and that kind of created the impression that there were more males than females. Of course, that wasn't true, but that's what it felt like.
No, you're totally right, Graham. When we first started there, you know, we got all these, what probably were the Hosanas of Mala Mala and Londolozi had been going, you know, those camps had been going for decades and decades. And when I joined, I think Djuma had only been going for about 6 years or so. And so you didn't have people following up constantly looking to work out the patterns of the leopards and what they were doing. So we got these beautifully habituated leopards thanks to the reserves down south, and it was only the first habituated female that I ever saw was the safari female. But apart from that, we would see 3 or 4 different males, but only safari female, and brief glimpses of other leopards in the area. I remember there was a leopard called the Marula Pan female on Torchwood, which is where we traverse, and you'd see her from 100 meters. She'd see you in a tree and just jump down and disappear like a ghost. And then another female that we called the Beacon female. Also, we'd only ever get viewing of her after dark, and it was with I'm trying to think. It was probably James Sewela, Rexon, Tamani, myself, and possibly Soli Sitoli. And we managed to find, on one morning drive, we found drag marks across a road down from the big beacon, which is where Wild Earth had its you know, it's a communication trigonomical beacon at a high point close to Djuma. And we found these drag marks across the road, which we got excited about. And then, and whilst I was doing that, I heard because Rexon was there on his camera.
It's African. That was before. Was before Wild Earth.
And then we saw a leopard's track leaving that block and walking up towards the beacon. So we said, okay, well, let's follow this. But we knew that something had been dragged in there, and we carried on. And then about 50 meters down the road, James got very, very excited, and he looked down and he said, wait, stop, get out, come and have a look here, Chris. You know, and we went down and we saw the tracks of the female coming back on herself with tiny little paw prints. And he said, there's cubs in there. So we went very slowly because now I was shaking with excitement because, the only cubs I'd seen before that was Safari's cubs. So Karulas, two generations almost, I think, before Karula. But we'd never seen cubs in this part of Djuma before. And we didn't get out the vehicle. We just followed literally where the drag mark went. James go left, right, there it's going there. And the next thing he stopped and off in the bush, I just saw a tail of a little leopard going off. And so I was like, oh my word, the baby leopard. And so what we did was straight away, he said, right, after game drive, we're coming back here and we're just going to park the vehicle at a distance and we'll see how it goes. And I remember that was in the morning. We carried on our drive, saw some elephants, some rhinos, and whatever we saw. And then straight after game drive, Rex and Tamani and James, they took it in turns for about, eventually I think they came back at about midnight. They just sat there. They didn't put spotlights on or anything. They just sat there. And every time that little cub got out and got comfortable, they just turned the key of the vehicle. The cub would run off about 20 meters the first time, or 30 meters. The next time, 20 meters. The next time, 10 meters. And when we got back there was the little female cub was so relaxed that she was resting in the shade of the tree, and Rexon started the vehicle, switched off, and she didn't move. And so
that was
from
day, huh? In one day.
That was so that was Rex. He spent up until about midnight, and then the next morning he went back, but it was in 2 days. The young male didn't ever get as comfortable, and the mom didn't get as comfortable as whilst I was there. But that young little female, she was our relaxed.
Who did she grow up to be? Do you know her name?
So I'm gonna reach out to. I see Michael Fleetwood's on here. He'll know, and so I could see that he's saying the odd word here. But Mike will be able to tell me exactly where she. I think her dynasty
in Kanyeni?
Kanyeni.
Was it in Kanyeni?
Yeah, and I mean, Nkanyeni became part and parcel of Torchwood and Buffalo's Hook and Nkoro's leopard viewing, and it was brilliant just to be a part of that. I had very little to do with it. I mean, Rex and James did everything, but just to witness it, and then all of a sudden we had hope because we didn't have to just look for safari. We had another leopard to go and look for, and we did, and we found her, and it just added so much to. And then all of a sudden we were seeing more females than males because we had another female at the same time come up from the south of the concession called the White Cloth Female, and she then gave birth to a litter of cubs on Torchwood as well, close to those beautiful granite rocks, first and second rock.
I remember the White Cloth Female. I mean, she was, and you can tell from the names, like the White Cloth Female, the Beacon. Well, no, the White Cloth Female is clearly Mala Mala or London.
White Cloth, yeah.
You can always tell that's the name, man. And then obviously you must have known Karula as well.
So I knew Karula as a cub. So I left Djuma in 2007 towards the October. So Karula, if I'm not mistaken, was born. And we knew Safari had cubs and Karula, but I didn't really spend a lot of time with her as a cub. But when I came back to, even though I left Djuma and we moved first to the Eastern Cape, and then I started traveling around Africa a lot more. But I still went back and we guided. Pip and Yuri were very, very cool with us bringing back groups of our own and staying at Djuma or Vuyatela or Gallagher. And we used to, and I'll never forget the one day coming back to Djuma, and it was our first game drive. And we had a big group that we took both Gallagher and Vuyatela in the old days. And we left. And for those of you who've followed Wild Earth and all the rest, you'll know as you come out of Djuma, you've got the big open area quarantine. And we came out on quarantine, and as we turned onto the road that leads through the middle of the quarantine, area, there was 3 leopards, and it was Karula, and then if I'm not mistaken, quarantine male, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we had three leopards. Lex Hess was with me at the time, and Lex took this beautiful photograph of mom and her 2 cubs right next to each other walking over quarantine. Yeah, it was lovely. So it was like a real, I didn't get up there much. I maybe went 3 times a year to Djuma, but I always got super excited.
What was the name of Quarantine? What was Quarantine's brother's name?
Oh, hold on. If there's anything in the chat here.
Michael.
Somebody said Net Nanny just said kinky tail, and I
No.
got to do with the no, but that's got to do with the white cloth female, because her cub was in Chile or
Kunuma. There we go. Kunuma is correct. Yeah, thank you.
There we go. There we go. You see, this is why we need you guys. We can tell us stuff.
Exactly.
Old dog new tricks.
But that was Kunuma. I remember that was actually quite interesting. Hayden Turner. I don't think you ever met Hayden. So Hayden, on our very first National Geographic live broadcast, was Peter Pretorius, who you knew, and Hayden Turner. And I don't know what it was, but Hayden kind of fell in love with that Kunuma. And he just thought that cat was, and I remember why it was that he was doing a fireside chat or something. And while he was literally there live on National Geographic, television in front of the fire, Kunuma climbed up in a tree directly behind. I'm not making this up, Chris. You can look it up. Climbed up a tree in the back and then just lay on the branch. You can't write this stuff. And,
only Djuma leopards can, hey?
Yeah,
amazing,
absolutely
amazing.
And what about lions? Were you there during the Mapocho rain, or?
I left just before the Mapocho rain. So we had for a long time quite a stable pride network in that. It was quite cool because I think I was there when the Nkuhumas moved down for the first time. So when I first arrived, there was a pride called the Skutani Pride.
Yes,
and Skutela means in Tsonga to limp, because this pride was buffalo hunters.
Oh.
So they literally, one had the tip to the tail, not there. One hardly had any ears. The other one had a blind eye. I promise you wouldn't want to meet this pride in a dark alley. And but they were prolific buffalo killers, and they would go out often. We'd find them on buffalo kills. They didn't have much luck when it came to breeding, and so we saw cubs, but the cubs would come and disappear. And eventually, from what we knew, because remember in those days we didn't have WhatsApp to say, oh, is the pride here, is the pride there. We didn't have all these communities that helped us. If lions moved out, they're probably dead, and so we that's what I love about technology these days, is that we know that, okay, there's a Birmingham male lions move into Djuma. We know that they come from the Birmingham Pride and Timbavati and all the rest. So anyway, so the Skutani Pride dwindled and they started getting less and less. There was also a female in there with a kinky tail as well.
That was kinky tail. That was well known for, that was kinky tail.
Yeah. And then it went kind of quiet. We had a little pride called the Sandy Patch Pride, which was a couple of lionesses. I think that broke away from a pride in Londolozi, and then we had the
what about the Sticks?
The Stick Pride that would come up often via the Mulawati riverbed and then come in and visit us for a day or two and then go back south. But they were very much on a periphery pride of lions that you'd see them and you'd say, oh, after seeing the Skutani Pride, any lion looks beautiful. But the Sticks Pride was gorgeous, gorgeous lion. And then, so there was a bit of a void that was created once the Skutani Pride moved out. And I was with my tracker at the time, Andrew Causa, who many people will know Andrew. And Andrew was my tracker at the time, and we were tracking. It was quite funny because once the Skutanis kind of moved out, the sticks used to come into the southern part of where we could drive, but in the northern part, there was nothing. You'd get the odd male moving around or something like that. And the next thing, we drove over a dam called Susson's Dam Wall. And it honestly looked like lions had just been doing the Olympic sprints up and down there. And I said, what's going on? He said, no, there's a lot of lions here, Chris. There's a lot of lions. And so we followed this track, and it was so easy to track. Like at that time, I'd never seen at Djuma a pride of more than 20 lions.
Yeah, that was in Kahumas.
Than Kuhumas. And they came out of the northeastern parts of Manyeleti and probably Kruger. And the next thing, we see these lions, and they just start running away from us, scared of us.
Yeah.
Obviously, they hadn't seen many people before in a new area that they weren't used to. And it was incredible. It was, and we were like, whoa, okay, so now we've got to treat the lions like we're treating the leopards. And the pride calmed down, and we got great viewing of this huge pride. There was cubs, there was lionesses. I can't remember how many lionesses, but I would have said at least 10. They were magnificent. And we had all these cubs of different ages. It was phenomenal. And then we left in 2007, and they were pretty much our pride in the north.
Yeah.
And then I heard stories about the Mapojos. And I think they dwindled down the pride to just a few individuals.
I remember there was one horrific morning when Peter went. He was out driving. It was live broadcasting at that stage, and there'd been a lot of noise the night before, and so I think he knew that there'd been big trouble, and I think it was towards Buffelshoek Dam that he found a massacre. I can't remember the numbers, and maybe others will. It doesn't really matter. But those Mapojos hit that Nkuhuma pride so hard, and there were cubs dead, and lionesses, and it was carnage. It was very depressing.
But amazing then to see over the years, which you have documented, is how it went from that and regained the numbers, and got to a stage where it's so big now they split into two. Like it's incredible.
Well, they were a very successful pride with then and in the end, and in a way, I guess this is nature. Is that what you had was the confluence of a very successful pride and a very successful coalition. And when that happens, there's going to be a lot of lion blood, unfortunately. But ultimately, what it builds is then a very, very stable and successful dynasty, which is what happened. But I mean, those Mapojos was something else. I mean, honestly, the stories, and I mean, to this day, I'll tell the story. Everyone's heard it, I'm sure, and I still question whether or not it's true. But the one story was that one of those lions killed his mother. I mean, it's probably not true. And then dragged her skin around, like ate part of her, and then dragged the skin around for a week. I mean, it's a thing of legend.
Oh no, it was. Yeah, it was sad to hear about, because I was hearing all of the stories while I was in the Eastern Cape and at an Elephant National Park, and so I was never there to witness it. And obviously, I've seen the videos and kind of chatted about things with guides that were there at the time. They said it was horrendous, but and then sort of came after that where things were starting to sort of blossom, if you like, and we just saw beautiful. I think that first time I went back to Djuma was after a long time, and there were these beautiful males, the Matimba males.
Sure.
I remember I was just coming in for a bit of time here, but I'd never seen a more beautiful lion, that hairy bellied Matimba male. And I remember him sitting on one of the dams and just bellowing his eyes out with his mate was called Ginger, if I'm not mistaken. You'll have to forgive me, guys, if for those of you who followed, there's a lot of gray matter, and I've seen a lot of lions all over the place, but I'm pretty sure it was the hairy belly and the ginger. It was amazing.
I remember Ginger. That Ginger definitely rings a bell. Let's ask Michael.
he had a I think like a calcified little piece of some bone on his front leg, so he always had a little limp. But they were magnificent lions. Yeah,
they really were.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's some great stories about all those different cats, and I think you're going to enjoy seeing.
Yes, I can't wait. And September, Graham, September, sitting there at Tumbeta. For those of you who haven't been to or haven't seen what Tumbeta is about before, it's a beautiful. It's a beautiful little small intimate camp. So the fact that you've got 6 people in your game drive vehicle, you're just 2, 4, 6. There's this gorgeous swimming pool in front of the waterhole where you can go down into this eye level hide, and in September the bush is going to be dry. We're going to probably have elephants during the day coming, lots of game coming from quarantine. There's a beautiful view from the sunrise deck down towards Djuma Dam, where you go. Well, not Djuma Dam, but Gowrie Dam or Yatela Dam, and it's going to be stunning. It's really cool. It's a small, intimate place. We can chat about things that we've seen from the day, recap, sit in the hide, look at little, if when the elephants aren't there or there's not something, birds coming in and out, and that's the really cool thing that Graham's touched on earlier, is that the length of time that we're spending at Tumbeta is not just your average sort of come in 3 nights and we're out. And we've got to go to Cape Town and Garden Route and then fly home. We're going there to immerse ourselves in that area and give ourselves long enough time that we can arrive the first day and say, maybe we don't know what's going on. Okay, there was a leopard calling here. Let's go and track the leopard, find the leopard, and then over the course of the days that we're there, try and continue the story of what's going on at that time and see those different individuals and characters of the bush. So I can't wait for that, and to be with whoever comes to join us with Aubrey. It's going to be magic, and also having the flexibility and freedom that we're not there for just you can have a 3-hour game drive. We can stay out on game drive as long as we want, and come back. The ladies who are going to be looking after us, for those of you who stayed at Djuma before, Elizabeth is an amazing cook, and she'll be, making sure we don't go hungry. But if we want to come back an hour or 2 later because we're seeing something magnificent, that's what we do, and that's always been my love of Djuma, is that we didn't have to conform to all of that. And I think, those of you who join us will get to understand that. Yeah, it's really cool.
No, and that's such an important point about Djuma, is that it is not only is it a pioneer in so many ways, but it's also got a real family feel. It's got a real authenticity to it. And I mean, there's no ways that I could have done the things I've done there in the last 27 years without the incredible support, the courageous, pioneering support and just vision really of Yuri and Pippa, and it flows through everything and everybody. I mean, as you know, that I don't think I've ever come across such a happy and proud staff and people that, I mean, they really do feel like family.
Absolutely. For most of that young adult life of mine, for the first 7 years of my life, they weren't just co-workers, they're friends and family, and it's wonderful going back there, but the problem is, because I went when I was so young, Aubrey still calls me Chris Sana, which means young Chris.
You have to be grateful for that, because you're not going to. There aren't many of those left.
Absolutely great.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'll do is, if anybody's got any questions for me or Chris about Djuma, about the past, I mean, we'll do what we can about the animals, but you all know far more than we do about where we are at the moment. But also about the cam, or anything for that matter, no, just go ahead. I'm only going to look at the questions on YouTube, unfortunately. It's just, otherwise it's just too much for an old man like me. Lenny asks a question, and I have to admit I haven't done this yet. Did you upload the last drive of Nick? Haven't been able to find it. No, Lenny, I have not yet uploaded the last drive of Nick's.
I would like to see that. So if Nick's listening, please just send it.
He is listening.
Is he?
I spoke to Nick earlier, and he said, "Please say hi
Fantastic.
to you from him." Yeah, so
Amazing.
I'm sure he'll look you up when he comes through on his expedition.
Can't wait.
So I will get that Nick one up. Shreyas is asking, any memories regarding the Sussens mail, Chris? The Sussens mail.
Yeah. I wish I had it here. The other day, we've got this old box that hasn't been cleared out for years, and my son Harry was going through it, and most of it was old trinkets and all the rest. It's an old kiss, and he opened it up. I might be able to find it. You might have to excuse me for a second, but the first photograph of a leopard I ever took was of the Sussens male.
Go run and get it.
Give me a second. I can't guarantee, but I'll see if I can
get it. While Chris is getting that, let me quickly say that what I'm going to do for Chris as well is Harry still watches a DVD of his dad on diaries. So Chris dropped that off yesterday with Yuri in Hoedspruit, and it's a huge file. He's copied that onto Google Drive for me. I'm going to download that, and I'm going to upload those episodes. So I'm going to upload onto the Djuma YouTube all these old school of Chris, a much younger man at that time, doing all those episodes that we broadcast on SABC all those years ago. So you can catch up. I can't really remember at all what to expect on them. I can remember that it should be slightly better quality than Nick's last drive. That's the only thing I'm hoping that it will be. So while he's doing that, okay, so we'll do that. Thank you, Michael. I bet it's good to Michael saying thanks for the memories discussion. I mean, we've all been doing this so long. I mean, Michael, you've been part of this for so many years. You've heard all the stories before, but I guess it's always good to hear them again. Okay, and then Puma, one of the young lions that survived the Mapocho massacre was Sizanani. That name does not ring a bell, but I'm sure you're right. Michael asked the question, does Chris know who Safari's mother was? That's a damn good question. That let's come back to that when he gets back. Shreyas, Graham, if you can get the chance, could you please do more fireside chats with Chris and the other veterans? Yeah, actually, I must say, I just thought I'd help Yuri out with these expeditions and get them going. But I'm really enjoying these kind of, these chats with the old school. I think we need to get Rexon. On for one. He's not going to be guiding one of these expeditions, but I still think we should get Rexon on for a chat. That'll be a good one. And there's actually quite a few people, some of the old ex-Wild Earth people. I don't know. I'll ask Yuri if he doesn't mind using the Djuma camp to do that. But it is fun, and I do enjoy doing it. So why not? Puma, also Nana and Kuhuma was a survivor from that time. Again, that name does not ring a bell, but I mean, I'm sure she was in Kuhuma. Michael, I reposted on Twitter photos found on Djuma's old website and FB by Chris of the Sussens Mail. Okay, thank you. That's great. Richard, what is the model of the new Djuma dam cam now? You know what, Richard? It is, honestly, it's an impossible to mention model. I don't know why people do this. It's I don't know. It's like 24 random characters and numbers that makes no sense, but it is nearly the exact same camera that was there that Wild Earth had before. So we just asked them what they had gotten, and then we just kind of went and found. It's not exactly the same, I think, but it's very, very similar. Chris, do you find it?
Got it. Oh,
hold on. It's
sorry, interference.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, I think you're good there. Yeah.
Just move slowly. Oh,
yeah. There you go. Wow.
So this was the Sussex male. It was the first picture of a leopard I ever took.
Phew, look at those eyes, eh?
No, he was a beaut, and we recognized him mainly. Well, first of all, the spot pattern above his whisker line here, but then also that little V in his ear there.
Yeah, yeah,
And this was close to the gate. It was on Djuma, just east of. And I haven't seen this picture. It was.
I say your memory.
Sorry.
I say your memory is exceptional. Your memory is really good.
No, but it's not really. If you speak to my wife, I'm not my memory.
Well, maybe when it comes to the leopards and the lions.
Well, I'll never forget that, and I'll remember it was myself. It's quite a funny story, actually. Myself, I can't remember who the other vehicle was, but there was definitely one of the old guys, Ephraim Causa, who was driving. And after I took this picture, I just got this intense itchy feeling. As you could see from the picture, there was lots of long green grass. I just got all this itchiness down my back.
Oh, I know where this is going.
And it was just north of Sandy Patch, and we were following this leopard through sort of a thick bush, and the next thing I just started itching. And I thought, oh, this is not good. This is not good. And it's that type of itchiness that turns into almost, anyway, the only way to get rid of it was once we left the sighting, I managed to hold my cool for a little while. And then as we left the sighting, I just had to strip off my shirt and then get Patrick, who was my tracker at the time, to scratch my back. And he's like, this isn't going to work. What you need is the ash from the leadwood tree, because that's really going to work. And I was like, where am I going to find lead from a leadwood tree ash right now? Anyway, so that was the old Sussens male. And we didn't see a hang of a lot of him. And he used to hang out a little bit further north from Djuma. But it was, that was one of the dominant males when I started. The other one was 3-spot.
Oh, I remember 3-spot. I remember 3-spot.
The most beautiful leopard. Hey? And if I'm not mistaken, Yuri talks about a time when he saw 3-spot as a little furball to the south of what is now Cheetah Plains, the old Djuma Bush Lodge, and then watched him grow up. And he was kind of like a quarantine cat that didn't disperse far and wide, but instead hung out not far from his natal territory. And he was our animal. We used to love Twin Dam Road, and it was magic, that whole Molawati section. He was an amazing cat. Really cool.
Well, there we go, guys. I mean, I think that Peter Pretorius would be great as well. They're saying he's stunning, but I think they're talking about the leopard. Sorry, Chris.
This one's past his prime. He's no longer territorially dominant.
But not as bad as Shivati. Not as bad as Shivati. I want to let you know.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, man.
So everybody, what we'll do, we'll kind of wrap it there. But remember, you can jump on the vehicle with Chris if you can stand it. We'll have fun. We'll have fun, guys. No, I promise you. Ignore everything on the Fireside chat. It won't be like this. It'll be actually fun. But don't forget, 3rd of May. I forget the exact time, and anyway, it's going to be different for everyone. But have a look at the website, Expeditions, and the formal open at the exact time that the countdown comes down. Put in your first choice, your second choice, and we'll make every effort to give everybody. We'll do it fair. So we'll do it in whatever order that it comes in at. And then also, please join me again tomorrow, same time, same place, with Villiers. Villiers is a bit more recent, his experiences, and in particular talking about my all-time favorite leopard, Hosanna. Did you ever meet Hosanna, Chris? I did. Did you? Oh, of course, because you came back as well. And I was coming back and forth, and I didn't spend lots of time with Hosanna.
but spent good time with Hosanna. Yeah, it was great. The time, and Villiers will be able to give a lot more accurate accounts of all his times with him, because but I saw him in increments, and it was nice seeing him getting bigger each time. I just see last one from Michael Fleetwood, if you don't mind me saying this. He said, Graham, could you ask Chris about Safari's mom? Michael, I don't. So she was an adult leopard when I arrived. I first started guiding. She had 2 male cubs, which Djuma, and I didn't ever know her. She was probably about, I would imagine, a sort of 5-6-year-old female at that point when I started guiding, if not older. She was, so I don't know who the mother was, and I didn't, never found out why. We all those camps opened up to the general public post-apartheid. Before that, there were a few camps down in the southern and western Sabi Sands, but at that stage, and for very good reasons, people didn't want to travel to South Africa. And post-apartheid, we had all of these lodges opening up, and it was kind of that time that's when Safari's mom would have been alive, and maybe not a habituated cat, maybe not known. I don't know. So, but if anyone does know,
I would imagine that if anyone knows, it'd be Wrexham. I would guess.
Yeah. And all I know is that at that time she used to come in. She didn't spend all her time throughout the whole of Djuma Reserve. She used to come in from the south and the west. And I remember the guides on the Western Channel talking about Safari female leopard probably for a couple of months before I saw her. And then as she got older, in fact, it was almost, if I'm not mistaken, Shavati's influence. As he pushed eastwards, she felt more comfortable coming eastwards. And that's when we started to see a lot of her. Yeah.
So, Alden, that's interesting, because then that would then suggest that if she came from the southwest, that she would be either Londolozi or Singita.
Yeah, and even possibly, or maybe even Elephant Plains or Aretusa, something like that.
I
and
remember
probably
her a lot on Aretusa. She was a lot on Aretusa.
Oh.
But it might be that we can sort of find, because the folk in Londolozi, they were habituating leopards obviously before, them and Mala Mala were way ahead. So if she does come from that neck of the woods, maybe some of the older Alman Mhlongo and people like that might be able to tell us. But in
Gray,
a name for her, though, they wouldn't have called her Safari.
Well, I was just about to say that I had a friend of mine that was guiding at Mala Mala the same time I was guiding at Djuma. And if I'm not mistaken, we used to call 3-spot because he had 3 spots above his whisker, 2 on the other side, and we knew him well. But I think at Mala Mala, they may have even called him, if I'm not mistaken, they named him after a place on Mala Mala called Klebe Rocks. So he was the Klebe Rocks male. And so, but when you see pictures of the Klebe Rocks male from that time and 3-spot, they were the same leopard. So that's the great thing about the communities and WhatsApps and this online thing where I can send a picture. So I saw a leopard recently in the western part of Kruger, not in the Sabi Sands, in the Timbavati, but sent it to a friend of mine who works there a lot, and I said, do you know this leopard? And he said, I don't. And about a month later, he came back and he said, I know this leopard. So I said, but he said, you're not going to believe this. So I said, what do you mean? So he said he was born in the far eastern part of the Kruger National Park, along the Lebombo mountain range, in a place close to Dumbana Rocks in the Singita Lebombo concession.
Yeah.
He came all the way from there, dispersed all the way to literally not far from our hometown of Hoedspruit in the Timbavati. And then we saw him. He then went back, because now I was like fascinated that we'd found out about this leopard that had moved probably 80, 90 kilometers from where he'd been, and then went back there, spent about another month, and then is now our resident leopard in the West. So so it's cool now, at least with all these things. It's
It's interesting that Villiers that we're talking to tomorrow, he's actually got a master's degree in leopard dispersal, but in leopard dispersal, not in leopard. It's just understanding the whole concept of their dispersal.
Amazing. And in fact, Villiers lives down the road from us here, and he does amazing work at plotting and keeping even in this estate where we have where I live is sort of peri-urban. But even here there's leopards running around, and he knows who's who, and I've lived here for years and seen 4. But and he knows exactly who's who because of all the camera trail camera
trapping. Well, he's safari expert. Yeah, he does that a lot. Yeah. Just one final one. We're never going to end this thing, but
we could talk for hours. Sorry.
Bridget asked, "Why is Graham doing this?" I'm doing this to help a friend, Yuri, my friend, the owner, and him and his wife Pippa, who own Djuma, and they asked me to help, to help get the Djuma Cam going, and then also to help to promote these 6 expeditions. I actually, this is not my job. My job right now is I have a new business that I've started called Zeroth AI. It's an artificial intelligence business. And we're building and getting really close to completing our first radar. It's a system. It's a radar system that goes on normal manned aircraft that are flown by anti-poaching patrols over these protected areas, and then using artificial intelligence to detect wire snares, the wire snares that threaten animals. In fact, the biggest threat to biodiversity in protected areas in Africa is the wire snare for bushmeat. And it's a very asymmetric problem. So the value that the poachers get is very low, but the cost to the environment is very high. And it's a problem that's very hard to solve. The best trackers in the world, if they really work really hard, can maybe get 20% of the snares in an area, but it takes so long and they can't cover the whole area. So really, we've got no tools. They've got no tools to be able to combat this problem. And we're on a mission. We're going to disrupt this problem. And in 5 years' time, we're going to end this bushmeat poaching problem. And it's a really big, hard problem, which is what I wanted. Now that I'm almost 30 years old, I feel that I've reached old enough to be able to tackle this problem.
No, that's amazing. Great. that like I said to you the other day when we had a catch up, if one can eliminate the indiscriminate wire snares throughout Africa, and it's not just South Africa. I know, a lot of times we've been talking about, the Western, even just the leopards that we know that have been affected by it. But I've been in the Western Serengeti where just kilometers of wire snares throughout Africa. That technology would be
it's a game changer.
Groundbreaking. And
it literally is a game changer. I mean, and we're there. I can tell you. I mean, it's been a hell of a monumental effort, and Dr. David Gaynor and Professor Michael Ings, that are partners in Zeroth, they were working 2 years on this before I got involved, and now we've got really quite a team and some really smart people. I'm the only one so far that doesn't have a doctorate, which is but it's a great team, and we've got some great support, and I'm hoping that within the next couple of months we'll be able to demonstrate. We've got a partnership with GKEP. Sharon Houseman is a good friend, CEO. So that's the Greater Kruger Environmental Protection Foundation. We've partnered up with them, and we're going to be doing a series of test sites. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll make the Manyeleti our pilot project, and because that place needs help, and so it's just I spent a lot of time working with technology in the bush, and giving people a lot of great experiences. What about doing something for the animals directly? Using that technology to give them a great experience.
Absolutely. Amazing. Well done, mate.
Well, listen, Chris, thank you very much for
But
your time. I really appreciate it. It was a great chat. Good old days. Thank you very much for doing the expeditions. Thank you, all of you, for
can't
joining.
wait.
Great questions, Michael. Thanks for the answers. And we'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow. Chris will see you at Djuma for the lucky ones that managed to get a seat with him.
Can't wait.